Hello Malaysia and welcome to another edition of The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam, and today once again we take a look at this topic that we've spoken of before. It's called EFT. It's a form of counseling intervention that draws on various theories of alternative medicine, which includes acupuncture, NLP, have you heard of NLP, energy medicine and thought field therapy. But what we're talking about today is EFT, and our guest today happens to be in Malaysia for a little clinic which is going to be happening very soon, or a little course. We'll be giving you some details on that later. In the meantime, let's get to know Pankaj Gupta. Pankaj, very good day to you, and thank you very much for joining us.
Hi Jared, thank you very much for having me here.
Well, we had you here a couple of weeks ago, or
Yes,
about a month
yes.
ago, yeah, and you were speaking to Jesse, gave us a little brief on what EFT is.
That's right.
And your story and how you got into EFT is very interesting, simply because you come from a family of engineers, or an engineering family, and you've branched out to do something totally different from engineering. So your experience and your getting into EFT, can we start talking about that first before we talk about energy? That's a little something I want to talk about today.
Certainly. I was raised, like you said, in a family of engineers. I spent more weekends in our factories than I did playing cricket.
Right.
You know, some years, and I really enjoyed that also. And I went on to study engineering in college, which was in the United States. By the time I finished my education from school and college and I started working, my body had started hurting a lot. So when I was 10 or 11 years old, my right knee had started developing some problems. I started getting mild headaches.
Was this due to sports, or it just happened?
It just happened. Sports didn't help, but it happened because I didn't let any of my aches and pains slow me down. So I was a pretty young schoolboy or a college student. I realized that by the time I was in my mid-20s, that in spite of all my education and skill and achievements, my physical body was not getting any better. My back was in a very bad shape. My migraines had now started hitting me twice a month, 5 days each. I used to cough all the time, and almost every joint in my body hurt. A lot of these were related to injuries. When I was in college, I used to practice karate, I used to run, I used to do long distance running, I used to meet with accidents every once in a while, and the injury would heal, but the pain would still be there. And I remember growing up in India and in the United States, going to doctors once a week, at least every week, for as far back as I could remember. And this is in spite of the fact that I was never sick. I don't have any diseases. I never had any diseases. So even while working in our engineering business, by the time I was 25, 26, I was really feeling almost crippled.
Were these pains pains you could explain, or were they just pains that came and went, like fibromyalgia?
Some pains were a bit like fibromyalgia, and other pains started with injuries.
So it would appear, then it would disappear.
Yes. Okay. And so all I could tell doctors was, well, this pain started when I got injured, and then it was better, but it doesn't seem to be healing, or this pain just comes and goes and I don't know why. And no two doctors could even give me the same diagnosis. So all the medicine I had, all the advice I got was just helping me cope, but the end result was that I was much worse. I was 26 and I was feeling like I was 86. Many of us would have heard or would have experienced that when you're really ready, help appears. I was desperate. And that's the time when my healers and teachers began to appear. And like you said, I was an engineer, so I was a complete non-believer.
Right.
Okay, but I was desperate. So in spite of my
When you say
skepticism,
you were a complete non-believer and there was skepticism, was it that you didn't believe in a healing process or healing process and organized religion? You didn't believe in all this at that point?
well, I didn't have many opinions on religion, but as far as healing is concerned, I remember at the time my sisters were doing Reiki, and I used to laugh at them.
Right.
Okay, that's what I mean. That anything outside of conventional medicine was hocus pocus, you know,
Right.
It didn't work. But then I was getting increasingly disillusioned with conventional medicine, and I'm not here to disregard conventional medicine. It has many great solutions. For example, if you break a bone, you have to go to a hospital or an orthopedic to fix it. I can help you heal the pain. Okay, I cannot help you reset the bone. Okay, so this is by no means a disrespect to conventional medicine. This is just saying that it has its limitations. So I tried it and tried it and tried it, but the end result was zero. It was negative, I would say. So, but I was in so much pain that when someone suggested that I meet this lady who had just learned EFT in California, which was where it was developed, I went very happily that maybe this will help. And when she asked me what I wanted healed, the skeptic in me, remember that by that point in time, my whole life I'd been disappointed in doctors and in all kinds of, and I don't just mean allopathic medicine. Growing up in New Delhi, there were many options available, which I tried, like Ayurveda, Tibetan medicine, Unani medicine, homeopathy. Everything helped a little bit, but nothing fixed anything. So when this lady asked me, you know, what do you want healed? The skeptic in me was like, yeah, right, you're going to fix me. You know, but because I didn't believe it.
But who introduced you to this lady? Or how did you hear of this lady?
Well, my sister used to know someone at home who did Nature Cure, which is a system which heals through food. And so that's the only thing I knew that I hadn't tried. So I went to meet this Nature Cure therapist, and she told me that a friend of hers had just learned EFT. So that's how I went to the EFT practitioner. And as a skeptic, I gave her the toughest pain that I had, which was my right knee, which at that point in time had hurt continuously for 16 years. I remember all through school and college, if I had to sit in a plane, in an auditorium, in a movie theater, I always had to take the aisle seat. So I could keep moving my knee, otherwise it would get stiff. And if for some reason, if I couldn't get the aisle seat, I would be limping back home. So she said, fine. And 3 minutes later, 80% of the pain was gone. I stood up, I kicked my leg around because I couldn't believe it, and then I started laughing because it was so bizarre to begin with, but it worked. My whole life I ran around looking for a solution while the solution was within me. I didn't need any medicine, I didn't need anything. And within a few more months, the remaining pain vanished, and now it's been 16 years since that day, and I can promise you I have no pain. I'll also point something else out. Then in about a year or so after this, because now I had no pain, so I started playing more, I started doing more exercise, I injured this knee, the same knee. I tore a ligament partially. I had to get a minor surgery done. I asked the doctor, I said, look, you're going into my knee, tell me what was wrong with it. For 16 years I suffered. And that surgery, which would normally take about 20 minutes or 30 minutes, took almost 2 hours. And then later he told me that we had a good look around your knee. I would say that they gave my knee a bit of servicing. They said there was some scar tissue and things, because I did have a cyst at one point in my knee which had ruptured.
You had a cyst in your knee?
Yeah, which had ruptured. So I wasn't born with it, but it had formed when I was 9 or 10 years old, and then while playing it ruptured one day. But in spite of that, but other than that, there was a abnormality in my knee. A part of the complex structure of the knee has a meniscus, which part of the role of the meniscus is to cushion the upper leg and the lower leg. And that also holds the tendons and ligaments in place. A healthy meniscus should be shaped like a C, so it holds things in place and they have a range of motion. Mine is called a discoid meniscus, so it's more like an O.
Discoid meniscus.
Yes, because it's almost like a circle, you know, so it keeps everything tense, which is why my knee used to hurt. The point I'm making is that in spite of the discoid meniscus, in spite of the defect in my knee, which is still there, which I probably had since birth, I have no pain. I'm not suffering. And that is the lesson I learned that day.
Right. So
that no matter what it is, whether it's a physical problem, later I learned whether it was an emotional or a mental problem or a disease or any kind of stress, you don't have to suffer.
After meeting this lady, she helped you with your knee, and then you had other problems too. You had a back problem, you had
very
back pains
bad,
all over the place. How long did that process take, or the healing process take?
Well, I of course immediately got very enthusiastic about whatever this lady did, and I said, well, I need to learn this. I have so many aches and pains.
Right.
So she said, sure, I'm conducting a workshop in 2 weeks. Why don't you attend it? I did, and the workshop was in somebody's home, and there was only floor seating there. and there were mostly ladies my mother's age who would come to the workshop. I was the youngest person there, and I couldn't sit on the floor because of how bad my knees, my hip joints, my back, even my neck were, the pain and stiffness that I had. So they had to bring me a chair. I sat in a corner that day. I felt very old. Nonetheless, I learned how to tap properly, and I tapped a lot because this was the only thing that had given me relief. And in less than 3 months, I could sit on the floor.
When you say tap, you literally mean tap?
Yeah. I'll show that to you. We tap on the same points which are used in acupuncture and acupressure. So EFT, or tapping like it's normally known, is also called painless acupuncture, or acupuncture without needles, or emotional acupuncture, because it works on your emotional problems, which are actually much bigger than your physical problems.
Right.
And then to go back to your earlier question, another 3 months later, so let's say 6 months after I first started, I could sit on the floor for the whole day without a backrest. And I know this because I used to go back to this workshop every month because it had had such an impact on me. And I used to learn something, I used to have some breakthrough, and I used to sit there, and that's how I began teaching it. I began assisting this teacher. And then I began to take her students to advanced levels. So it was almost comical, where she was bringing them in and she was initiating them with the basics, and I was the advanced teacher. But because I used to sit there at the workshop for the whole day, I know that I could sit there, and that too without a backrest. And most of this happened without any exercise. I say most of it and not all of it, because I know that at some point in those 6 months I did start doing yoga, which was also extremely painful to begin with. And I do give a lot of credit to yoga also. But I know that even without the yoga, a lot of the things, a lot of the aches and pains that got fixed happened because of the tapping.
And with the first session, subsequently as you moved along, how much research did you do? I mean, being a skeptic, moving into something or rather uncharted territory for someone who's got so much problems in his life, more so pains. What was it like? You know, did that engineer in you want to research how this whole thing works, how the techniques work? You know,
absolutely,
where it's derived from.
Yes. So back then, this was in 1999. And in 1999, the internet was still in its infancy compared to where it is now.
Still using dial-up.
Yes, yes. And so there wasn't much information online. But the founder of EFT, who's a Stanford engineer named Gary Craig, he had a website, which he still does. And he used to post some tips and tricks and case histories and some educational videos and things like that. Well, not videos. We didn't even have songs online back then. The videos came much later, but you could buy the videos. So one of my first bits of educational material was actually VHS tapes, a whole bunch of VHS tapes that came from the US to me. So that's how I learned it. My approach was initially less to understand, say, how the engine of the car worked. My approach was to learn to drive the car better and faster and go places where I couldn't go earlier. So that means different applications of EFT. So I learned EFT applications on physical aches and pains, and then I researched and I learned more how you can actually change your thought process with it. Because you see, we all try to change our thought process, to change our habits, let's say through New Year's resolutions.
Being the operative.
Yes. So as a New Year's resolution, we may try that I'm going to quit smoking this year, I'm going to start waking up early this year, I'm going to not eat sweets this year or something, but it doesn't happen. And the reason is that it's your mind which is trying, and the problem is in your mind. Your mind cannot fight itself, isn't it? Right. So if I tell you that, don't think about that one person who's really hurt you or who's really let you down, who's really caused you a lot of pain, who do you think about?
Of course.
That person, isn't it? So how can you control the mind like that? Okay. What I understood through my research is that EFT actually works on energy, which means that within us there is a very powerful energy system, which is what I discovered. And your mind is also a function of that system. Okay. So for example, That system has emotions as well as your thoughts, and even your body is a manifestation of that system. If you remember what Einstein discovered, E is equal to mc square. So all matter is energy first. Okay. So if you're afraid of something, fear is an emotion, right? If you're afraid of something, let's say if you have a simple fear about missing a flight. Okay, you're worried about missing a flight. So what happens when you start getting worried about missing a flight? Your body gets tense, isn't it? Your mind goes into a panic. What happens when you go into a panic? Normally, when you're in a panic, you miss things. If you're packing in a hurry because you'll miss a flight, you'll probably forget something. You'll keep wondering, did I forget something or not? You may make mistakes, right? You may not have your focus when you're driving, if you're driving. You'll be even more worried when you're on the road, isn't it? So what's in your energy, which is fear, is actually affecting your mind and your body. Okay. But if you clear the emotion, if you clear the fear, your mind relaxes and your body relaxes. And what I discovered actually, this is the part that I've studied a lot, that I've researched a lot, is that when you fix the energy within you, your life outside you begins to fix itself.
Fix the energy within yourself, and the life outside you falls into place.
Exactly.
Well, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll find out more about EFT. Joining us in the studio today is Pankaj Gupta. He's got a lot of goodies for us. He's going to be sharing that with us. Of course, like I said, we're going to be doing a little bit of a freak show, and I'm going to be the freak here. Stay with us. We'll come back with that. And when we come back, we're going to explain energy to you. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about a lot of other things. Also, what we're going to talk about today is something everyone's been talking about, the GST. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Nation. Today we talk about, of course, EFT. We're going to talk about the GST. But before that, let's find out what energy is now. You clearly talk about energy quite a bit, because you say if people don't understand energy, you don't understand how to deal or how to use EFT. So when we talk about energy, where do we begin? Or what do we need to understand as lay people who some of us think we know what energy is, chi, ki, there's many names for energy. Some of us call them chakras, but essentially, how do we work energy within ourselves, and how do we, should I say, manipulate it to our own benefit?
Sure, that's a very good question. I'll try and answer it in a few minutes. It's the answer is a very big answer. Technically speaking, within our body itself, there are certain components which are part of the energy system that you actually know about. One of the components you've heard about are the chakras. The chakras are energy centers, and each chakra actually affects different aspects of your personality and your life. Then you have energy meridians. Energy meridians are like energy circuits. What's an energy circuit? It's much like the electrical circuit in the studio. Electricity is the energy, but that electricity is of no use to us unless there is a circuit which takes it to an appliance, like to this monitor or to the lights, and even there the circuit has to be complete. If the circuit is broken, if there is a short circuit, nothing will work. Okay, and that's actually what EFT does. That within your body you have these energy circuits called meridians, and within energy meridians you can have energy disruptions. So your electricity, you can say, is not flowing properly, and EFT is a tool which zaps into every energy disruption. Okay, so we've talked about chakras, we've talked about energy meridians. Then if you study the yogic tradition, there are main three energy superhighways which are along your spine. So that's also another part of the energy meridians. All of that actually doesn't matter if you want to balance your energy. If you want to balance your energy, you have to first understand this one basic thing. That one basic thing is, no matter what you're doing, whether you're working or not working, whether you are eating or not eating, whether you're sleeping, whether you're arguing, whether you're laughing, for everything you do, and even things you don't do, you actually only want one thing, which is to feel better, isn't it? Everything that we do is to feel better. So see that as an energy state. Feeling better has a certain vibration, isn't it? So let's try something out, and this applies to all the viewers at home also. This is a very easy exercise which will help you to understand what energy is,
Right.
and I'd like you to play along with it.
Okay.
So it's very, very simple. I want you to just close your eyes.
Me too?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
you too. So everybody watching too, to just close your eyes if you can. Take a deep breath. Okay. And just put a big stupid smile on your face. Okay, just smile for no reason. Okay, don't be lazy, and just smile. Smile the biggest smile that you can for no reason. Okay, and keep smiling. And I want you to see if you can feel as you're smiling. Does your smile reach your fingers and your toes? It reminds me of a song. Do you feel it in your fingers? Do you feel it in your toes? Do you feel it? Where in your body are you feeling it? Okay. Take another deep breath. Let's take a deep breath. And now I want you to sit or stand, if you're standing, like you were depressed. How would you be sitting or standing if you're depressed? What would your body language be? Would you be standing up straight or sitting up straight, or would you be hunched over? Would your head be up or down? So sit like you are depressed. So Jared, how would you sit if you're depressed?
Definitely hunched.
Yeah.
Head
So
down,
do that. Yeah.
going
yeah,
downwards.
yeah. How would your breath be?
Labored and short.
Yeah. Your breath will be short. So just sit like a depressed person. And now see how your energy is, how you're feeling within. And all you did was change your posture, isn't it?
Right.
So you can all open your eyes and see. Let me ask you, so when you just sat straight and you smiled for no reason, you felt a different vibration, didn't you? And when you just pretended to be like a depressed person, I didn't ask you to think of any depressing thought. I just said, okay, lower your head. You started feeling a bit low, isn't it? So that feeling, the key word is feeling. That feeling is vibration. That is what energy has. As human beings, we cannot see energy, but we can sense vibration, isn't it? Like right now, you are sensing my vibration, which your mind is interpreting as sound, isn't it? Sound is vibration, light is vibration, heat is vibration, electricity is vibration, okay? All forms of energy have a vibration, and we can feel vibrations. To get a handle on your energy, you have to get a handle on your vibration. To put it very simply, you have to become more aware of your feelings. So I just showed you, without saying anything much at all, without asking you to use your mind, that you have a high energy state, which was the first smiling state, and you have a low energy state, isn't it? And everything we want to do in our life is to have that high energy state. So we may go out and meet a friend of ours, hoping to have some fun and to feel light and happy. But if that friend doesn't act a certain way, if that friend says something that upsets us, then we lose that state. We come home hurt and angry, isn't it? We feel disappointed, and then we blame that other person for our unhappiness.
Right.
So the reason why we must take control of our energy is because that's the only way to find the happiness that you're looking for. Just now I saw you, I showed you, you felt happy for no reason, and you felt sad almost for no reason, isn't it?
So what you're saying is, it's a very simple concept. You need to find that joy in you and maintain it,
Yes.
regardless of whatever comes your way.
And your true nature is joy. That's why as soon as you smile, you start feeling happy, isn't it?
Right.
We were born happy, weren't we? Do you think there was even a single infant ever born to the human race depressed?
I wouldn't know that.
Sounds ludicrous, isn't it? Okay, every child is essentially happy. Okay, so that's our true nature, and we were definitely a lot happier when we were younger, right? We had more energy and we were happier. Okay, so our true nature is happiness, and that's what we want. Yet we base our happiness on other people, and they themselves are not happy. So how can they make you happy? So this is the value of taking control of your energy. When you take control of your energy, you take control of your happiness.
Right. So when you talk about taking control of your energy, and I was talking about tapping earlier on, how do you make this to work? You know, being happy on the inside, but tapping yourself on the outside.
Right. So
to attain this happiness or this flow of energy.
Correct. it appears that when we tap, we are tapping on the outside, okay, but we are actually tapping on the energy system which is within us. So just this tapping is as much outside as an electrical switch is, isn't it? It appears that we are pressing an external switch, but what are we doing? We are actually connecting the circuit within. There's an electrical wire and a flow of electricity within the circuit. So you can think of these points as our switches. These are endpoints of energy meridians. So what was discovered in California, this was discovered by a psychoanalyst named Dr. Roger Callahan in the 1990s, was that by stimulating, by unblocking energy meridians, you could also heal emotional pain. Happiness is an emotion. Unhappiness is a painful emotion, isn't it? Guilt is a painful emotion. Regret, grief, sadness, these are all painful emotions. So what he discovered was that by tapping on energy meridians a certain way, you can literally erase your unhappiness, your sadness, your fear, your anger, and what's left is peace. What's left is happiness. Okay, so it's like saying that there's actually nothing wrong with the electricity, and if the electricity is flowing, the bulbs will be bright and the air conditioner will work and the computer will be fine. But if the circuits are blocked, the electricity won't be able to reach the right places, and your bulbs will be dim and the monitor won't work and your computer will be on the blink. There's no problem with energy. It's your energy circuits.
Right.
Okay, there are disruptions in your energy circuits. So the first thing I said was you want happiness, and a flow of energy is happiness. The second thing I want you to understand is you cannot be happy and unhappy at the same time. Can you? No. You cannot be fat and thin at the same time. I cannot be here and there at the same time. You cannot be up and down at the same time. The same way you cannot be afraid and relaxed or worried and peaceful at the same time.
But when you say you can't be up and down at the same time, your moods can fluctuate. Can that describe up and down?
Correct, but not at the same time. Isn't it? You can be up and you can be down, but not at the same time. Isn't it? So if you begin to understand vibration also, vibration means that it will vibrate a certain way. So when you were smiling, you had a happy expanded vibration. Did you not feel your chest expanding? Did you not feel your energy expanding when you were smiling? If you didn't feel it, then you try it again and you'll feel it. And when you sat like that, your vibration contracted. But the two cannot happen at the same time, isn't it? So within you, there are things which have blocked this energy, which is why you feel this negative emotion, which is why you feel worried, which is why you feel afraid, which is why you feel hurt, angry, helpless, out of control. Okay? As long as you're feeling that, you are trying to feel happy, isn't it? Because within you there's pain, you want to feel happy. So you do things to make yourself feel happy. You hang out with friends, you get into relationships, you buy yourself things, you try and make more money, you do all kinds of things to be happy. But that doesn't really work. That gives you temporary happiness, isn't it? And then your happiness kind of depends on other people, and when they don't act a certain way, then this pain gets triggered and then you get upset. The value is that by tapping, you can heal the pain within you.
Right.
So there's only light within.
But I'll tell you what, at this point in this country, everyone's feeling pretty anxious, and it's for a certain reason. It's because of the GST. Well, how do we deal with that? We're going to come back and find out a little bit more about that. Of course, people who've done EFT, how has that helped them? We'll also be talking about that, and we'll be giving you some information about what's happening over the weekend and next weekend right here in the Federal Capital. Stay with us. This is The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam. Welcome back to The Nation. We're talking about EFT today. Of course, with the EFT comes the GST. And how do we... we were talking about emotional freedom techniques, and there's the GST, which brings about anxiety, or at least there's a general sense of anxiety in the country. So how do we deal with this using EFT? Okay.
Well, see, the first thing that I want to point out to you is that the GST is actually not the problem. It's your own anxiety. That's the problem, isn't it? Do you think that there are people in this country for whom the 6% makes no difference? There are some people, at least on certain things it doesn't make a difference, isn't it? And do you think that there are people in this country for whom it makes a much bigger difference than it makes for you?
Yeah, of course.
Isn't it? So There are all kinds of people, okay? But as far as you're concerned, you are feeling anxious, and that's the problem. One thing I like to say often is that if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Mind over matter. You know, it's almost a play of words. So why are you feeling anxious? You're feeling anxious because you feel that there is a lack of money. You feel you have limited money, that this is what my work brings me every month, and now I have to spend 6%. And if other people, other businesses also have to spend 6% more, it will make things even more expensive, so I'll end up spending even more. So the inflow is the same, but the outflow is increasing, which is a feeling of lack, L-A-C-K, lack, okay, that there's not enough. Now, we spoke about vibration earlier. Lack clearly has a vibration, isn't it? Most of us are feeling it today, okay? Do you think prosperity has a vibration?
It certainly does.
Isn't it? Prosperity, abundance. And just like we, you know, and just like we said earlier, you can be in one place at one time. You cannot be in two places. So if you are vibrating lack, how will you get prosperity? Okay, if you're not in prosperity, you cannot get prosperity. What most of you or most of us are vibrating is what I like to call struggle.
I'd like you to speak to us.
Okay. Okay, is struggle or survival. Okay, that we are in survival mode. That the main thing, the main focus of your energy has been to survive, and so you're surviving, isn't it? You're not in prosperity mode. Like you were telling me earlier, sorry, and that in Malaysia you feel that over the years that your economy is getting polarized, society is getting polarized from a general large middle class. Now there are more haves and have-nots, and there are very few people in between. And this is exactly what vibration does. This is why it's not just in Malaysia, it's in every country, in every culture across time. The rich get richer, and often the poor get poorer. Because being rich and being abundant, being secure has a certain vibration. And being in fear, which happens when you're surviving, has a certain vibration. And like I was saying earlier, that the real relevance of taking control of your energy is because your energy or your vibrations actually control the outcomes in your life. So it's a very simple thing to understand. Let's say you have two candidates who are interviewing with you for a job, and they may seem equally qualified. They have comparable experience, their salaries are about the same and everything. But one of them is really trying to impress you, is really trying to show you how much he knows. While the other one is very confident, and he doesn't hesitate to say, I don't know, and he doesn't hesitate to ask you questions. The other one, the first guy, is clearly compensating for his lack of confidence. Now, all else equal, which person are you likely to hire? The first one or the second one? The second one, right? Isn't it? Why? Because his vibrations were confident. His vibrations were quiet. His vibrations were not in fear like the other guy. The other guy was panicking. He was worried, which is why he was trying so hard. So what was the outcome? For the fear-based person, his fear came true and he didn't get the job. And for the guy who was confident, he got the job.
Right. So it's about changing states.
It's your vibration which determines your reality.
Okay, let me give you another example.
Yes.
So it's great that you talk about the lack of something, and when you change your state of mind, think of prosperity, you become prosperous. Saying if you're now going through grief, okay, how can a person going through grief or suffering the loss of a family member change that to their benefit?
So whether it's grief or fear or hurt or anger or anything, the first thing to understand for me to be able to explain the answer to you is that all our pain, emotional, physical or mental, and these are all painful emotions that we are talking about here, are a result of blocked energy.
But okay, I need to interject here to say that when you grieve, people or experts always say that it's a process and you need to get through this process. So how do you explain what you're saying in this?
Right. The grieving process is absolutely essential. The grieving process is about making peace with the loss. It's about making peace with your new circumstances. However, the difference that I've noticed in my work, which I've been doing, I've been healing people for more than 15 years now. And I'll give you two examples and then I'll explain the answer to you. That a few years ago in India, we were at a workshop where I asked one lady to work on her grief because her husband had died when their son was 1 year old. And it was, of course, very, very unexpected. And there were a lot of other things at the workshop that we had identified for her, like her worries about her son or her health or whatever. And she insisted. She said, no, this is such an old issue. My son is healthy. He takes good care of me. We are doing fine. God is kind. Why do you want me to work on this? This happened so long ago. And, let me work on one of these other things. And I insisted. I said, okay, just for my sake, give me 10 minutes. Can you just tap on yourself for 10 minutes about this grief? And I told her how to do it. Everybody else in the room was tapping. I turned the lights down. It was very quiet. People were within themselves, clearing their emotions. And suddenly we heard a loud whang,
Yeah.
And everyone was surprised, and we looked at her, and she was howling as if the dead body of her husband was right in front of her. And there were a lot of her family in that group, and they tried to get up to try and help her. I motioned to them. I said, just sit down, do your own work. I'll take care of her. I let her emote. I let her cry. This is what sometimes EFT will do for you, that the blocked energy begins to come out, and which is what we want. We don't want to carry the pain. We want to release the pain, which is what I wanted her to do. So even though she felt that there was no need, because see what happens, especially with an unexpected death, is that the people, the survivors who are left behind, they get caught up in the frenzy. They're coping because there's so much that needs to be done. Suddenly their life is upside down, and that coping takes on a momentum, and you keep coping for the rest of your life. You never realize that you forgot to grieve. That's exactly what happened with her. She had a business to handle. She had a young son to handle. And the next day when she came back for the workshop, we were all shocked, because it seemed like she took an iron and and cleared all her wrinkles off her face. She looked 20 years younger. Okay? And then she realized that grief was definitely there within her. I was in Australia till yesterday and doing workshops, and there were two similar instances where one 70-year-old man had come, and he had severe arthritis in his hip. He needed a crutch to walk on. And instead of working directly on the pain on his hip, we actually worked on a loss of a friend when he was 17 years old. He was 70 now. It was more than 50 years ago that his best friend died in a car crash because he fell asleep at the wheel. He was in Canada. And he also had a similar experience. He said, I didn't realize that this was such a big thing. And then we were all on a holiday together at Uluru in Australia, and some of our students and friends were there, and they all noticed a big change in him. There was an improvement in his hip, but everyone said, wow, we've known him a long time. We haven't seen him so alive and happy. Okay, this was a grief from over 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. One of the best things that we saw was we had a 19-year-old pretty young lady who came into the workshop, and she was one of those very quiet girls, who doesn't have much confidence, and if she was very sensitive, who would cry at the drop of a hat, and who feels very inadequate about herself. And she was in college in Brisbane, and she was feeling very underconfident because of other students and because of various things. And every time she would start speaking at the workshop, she would start crying, because that's her personality. We all know that kind of a personality. So we started tapping on some of her fears and insecurities. And then she told me that when she was much younger, I think 12 or 11, her father had committed suicide. Now, which is very traumatic, you see. Suicide can actually leave you in a much worse space than a natural death, because now there's a lot of anger also involved, with the person. And she spent less than half an hour tapping out her grief, anger, sadness, all of that about her father. And then she looked at me very sheepishly in the workshop, and I went up to her to talk to her, and she said, I feel like laughing. And she was feeling bad that, I'm tapping on my father's death and I feel like laughing. But that's what energy is. That's what a high energy state is. Haven't you felt in your life at any time when you're really happy, nothing matters? Because that's a very high energy state, and that's actually all that matters in anything you do, is your own happiness. So whether it's your father's death, which was less than 10 years ago, which was a suicide, whether it's a friend's death over 50 years ago, or your husband's death, that grief will stay with you. It's in your energy. And it is robbing you of your happiness. It keeps you in fear. What do you think happens with people who lose relatives? Aren't they often afraid of losing their loved ones? That's a fearful state, and fear is not what we want. We want peace. We want happiness. So to answer your question, healing grief is absolutely essential, and EFT is a great way of doing it.
Well, we'll take another break, and when we come back, of course, we'll find out a little bit more about EFT and give you some information as to what's happening in Kuala Lumpur over the weekend right here at The Nation. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us right here at The Nation. We're currently talking about EFT, or Emotional Freedom Techniques. That's happening over the weekend in KL. You can find out more about it shortly. But in the meantime, you've been talking about getting rid of emotions, and then here we have Emotional Freedom Techniques. So how does this work, EFT? So you get rid of emotions through some techniques. And of course, when we talk about these techniques, we're talking about getting rid of bad emotions. Can I say bad emotions safely?
Painful emotions.
Painful emotions,
yeah,
right?
Painful
So
emotions.
how do you make a correlation between these two, Emotional Freedom Techniques and emotions?
You know, emotional freedom techniques is a tool. Okay, just like a hammer is a tool. Okay, and you can say that we are applying this energy hammer to clear energy disruptions, and as soon as the disruption is gone, you feel relief, whether it's a physical pain, an emotional pain, or a mental stress. So if you would like, if you have any physical discomfort right now, if you could just give me 2 minutes, I will show you how it's done,
Right.
for the benefit of the viewers.
Okay, so I'm going to be the
guinea pig.
The guinea pig.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do I do?
Okay. So just scan your body and tell me.
Please don't laugh.
You can laugh all you want. You won't hurt my ego. Okay. So just scan your body and tell me, like, if your shoulders or waist or head or back or legs or knees, anything are
I shouldn't be
hurting.
saying
Or
this on national TV, but you know, my gut's acting up now.
Okay.
Feeling very uncomfortable on the inside.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And chest is getting a little tight. Of course, you know that comes from anxiety. Looking, you know, sitting in front of a man like this.
Okay. So what's the most uncomfortable sensation in your body right now?
Well, probably a tight chest. I hope it's not an infarct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And if 10 is so tight that you can't breathe, on a scale of 0 to 10, how tight would you say your chest is?
Say about 4.5.
4.5. Okay. All right. That's all I need to know. And now we're going to do some things which will appear very funny or bizarre, and you know, that's absolutely fine. But I'll explain, you know, what we'll do. So the first step is, you know, I'm looking for a particular lymph node here, where it hurts, and I want you to just repeat, even though I have this tightness in my chest,
I have this tightness in my chest,
I deeply and completely accept myself. Okay, that's easy. Now I'm going to tap on certain energy points. These are the same as acupressure and acupuncture points. Okay.
Do I have to remove my eyes? No.
Yeah, that'll help, but you don't need to.
Yeah, you don't need to. Okay.
Yeah. So while I'm tapping here, I want you to say, this tightness in my chest.
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 Yeah. This tightness in my chest.
This tightness in my chest.
Keep repeating. You're doing very well.
This tightness in my chest. This tightness in my chest. This tightness in my chest. Do I keep saying it? This tightness in my chest. This tightness in my chest. This tightness in my chest.
You're doing well.
This tightness in my chest. This tightness in my chest.
Yeah.
This tightness in my chest.
Okay, just look at my fingers over here.
This tightness in my chest. This tightness in my chest.
That's good.
This tightness in my chest. 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 This tightness in my chest.
How much did you say it was earlier?
4.5.
4.5. Take a deep breath. And now tell me.
It's about 1.5 too.
Yeah. So it's less than half,
It's
right?
worked. It's worked. Seriously.
So
I feel really light now.
Yeah. See? There you go. So, and it took us less than 2 minutes.
There you
go.
Yeah.
See? So this tightness in your chest is like a discomfort or a pain. Now, whether it's a physical thing or a non-physical thing, for EFT it makes no difference. Okay, just like for electricity, it doesn't matter if it's going into the monitor or the light. If it gets there, it's going to do its job.
So the pain goes away.
Absolutely.
And this tapping, you're actually tapping on the points.
These are all energy points. These are like a switches, you know. And this is the same technique that you use for grief, for example, or for anger. The technique is not the important thing here. because the technique is very simple. It's the diagnosis of the issue that is important.
Right.
So that's what makes a good healer is that our ability to diagnose the target is much better than someone who's learned this off YouTube or or in a book.
Right.
Okay.
I saw there's heaps of programs on YouTube that you can follow, but you must be in a class to be.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the proof of that is that if you haven't heard of EFT before, that this is the reason.
Right.
That it's not been taught properly. The founder used to teach it properly, but he's more or less retired. Okay, but it's not being taught properly. It's like giving you a hammer. Everyone thinks, okay, I can pick up a hammer and hammer, it'll work. That's not how it is.
Right.
You have to aim right, which is why you must learn it properly. And if you can apply it properly, you can heal anything.
So diagnosing the problem is also very important.
Absolutely.
Right. So if you have a pain, you need to know where this pain is coming from or what the pain is.
That's right.
Right.
And the main thing I can tell you is that all your physical pain actually comes from your mental or emotional layer. Okay, that's why it's called EFT.
Right.
Physical things are very easy to heal with EFT, just like we saw. It's the emotional things.
Right.
Okay, I'd like to give you an example.
We've got less than 3 minutes. I don't know if we can do that.
Sure, absolutely. So if you consider, perhaps you might even know someone that, if you know anyone well who has had breast cancer, which is a very serious, sad condition, you may find that with most of the people who have had breast cancer, which are obviously women,
we spoke about it.
Which is mostly women, is that they have had a long pattern of hurt in their life. Especially in the role of a woman, they've either faced abuse, physical, emotional, verbal abuse, or financial abuse, or some form of abuse, and they've nursed that hurt for a very long time. And this is not a coincidence.
You've done research on this.
Absolutely, because I get a lot of cancer survivors or cancer patients in my work. So you tell me, do you know any?
I know of a couple of people who've suffered from breast cancer, and when I look back at their history, I kind of understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
Did they feel they had difficult husbands or?
For sure.
Certain difficult circumstances in their lives. So that's not a coincidence, you see. So, but if we are to give these people emotional relief by healing their hurt and their fear and their pain and anger, that cancer will not come back and the body will recover.
Right.
That's the power of emotional healing.
So EFT, how do we find out about it? Pankaj is in town for the next week or so.
Yes.
So there'll be something happening in the Federal Capital over the weekend, on Saturday and Sunday. Where's it happening?
It'll happen in KLCC, 99% at one of the hotels there. We are just finalizing the venue based on the number of people.
Right. So you haven't finalized the hotel?
No.
Right. So it's based on the number of people that are coming. He's here in Kuala Lumpur. If you want to get in touch with him, all you need to do is send him an email. You just need to go to tappingchanges.com. That's tapping changes, one word, tappingchanges.com, and you'll get all the information you need about Pankaj's stay here in Kuala Lumpur and the EFT. Should I say workshops?
Workshops,
that is happening over the weekend. It's happening on Saturday and Sunday, and also next week.
The next weekend, I think
that's
the 11th and 12th of April.
So he'll be here for 2 weekends. If you need more information, all you need to do is log on to www.tappingchanges, one word, tappingchanges.com, and you'll get all the information you need about the workshops happening within the Federal Capital. On that note, your take-home message to Malaysians with regards to EFT.
You don't have to suffer. No matter what it is, you don't have to suffer. You can get rid of your fears, your anger. There's no need to manage your anger. It can disappear, and you can live much healthier, happier lives without talking to anybody, just by going within and fixing your energy.
On that note, thank you very much for staying with us right here on BERNAMA TV. This has been The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam. You have a good day ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you, Pankaj.